What's up, guys? Here we go again. Another night. Are we spiritual or not? Interesting to know that the word spiritual comes, the root word from the Latin means breath, spire. So, this is spiritual means how you dressed. If you're on your knees praying, nope, it's not. So, Frank, so it's not. So then, why is so important to know if we're being spiritual or not? Basically, what does that mean? Well, like I said, spiritual. The root word comes from the Latin. It means literally to breathe. Another form is respire in Latin. You're breathing, you're literally spiritual. But I'm gonna break it into more pieces so we can understand basically what it is, right? See, have you heard people, "Man, I'm out of breath," right? That has happened to everybody, right? When you have a quick sprint, a quick jog, even people just walking the stairs, right? They just run out of breath when they don't have to be out of breath. So that's a red flag, not a red flag, but an indication that you're not being too spiritual, right? If you're alive, you're spiritual because you're breathing. So every time we go to the doctor, they check, right? Any sign how you're breathing all the time. First thing. Uh, it's interesting, man. That hello, Mary 619. How you doing? So it's interesting that I didn't know this. Like all this spiritual kind of makes it seem something kind of like out of this planet, something like very divine. I'm not being spiritual enough. Kind of we wanted to relate to praying or being on our knees. You know, and it has nothing to do with that. Nothing at all. And I was lost, like many of us, thinking that being spiritual is something outside of me. Mm, And it's not. Right? Now that we know the meaning, the root word about spiritual, spirit, right? Now we know that being spiritual has nothing to do with outside or praying to something or reading. That's nothing. It's to be paying attention how we're breathing, right? And you might think, hi, were you live? Yes, boy, what's up? So we might be thinking that I don't care about this. Well, this means everything, right? From an interview, right? We're nervous. What does actually nervous mean? When you're panicking, when you're scared, right? When you have to make a decision, right? When there's pain, when you're being interviewed by the law enforcement, by your teacher, your parent, your spouse, there's this heartbeat, it's beating faster. your pulse rate goes up. That's your breathing mechanism, right? Kicking in out of control, right? Because why? Because instead of focusing on our breathing, being spiritual, we focus on exterior. And this is when we fail, right? Lie detectors is nothing but reading your breathing. That's all. Mm. You don't even have to pay attention to the questions. You have to pay attention to your breathing, to not lose the rhythm, the harmony of the breathing. But of course, they're not going to tell you this because then they're giving everything away, right? They cannot control you anymore. And now you're not an easy prey for them. Mm. So breathing has to do with everything. You tell me, well, I'm in sports, Alex. Okay. How's your breathing? Mm. I'm a boxer. Okay. How's your breathing? Mm. Having sex. How's your breathing? Mm. I'm running. How's your breathing? I'm scared. It's all about breath. You know, paying attention to your breathing, meditation, yoga, you name it, man. Breathing, it's engaged in everything. Mm. All we just have to do is just be aware and come back to being spiritual again. You know, that's all. But it's interesting because when I was in the feds, right, you have to deal with a lot of policemen. And I started reading books about breath, about your lungs, stamina, what kind of exercises, physical exercises, meditation, kind of give you that inner power to start mastering your breathing techniques, right? And it's crazy that I started applying it even there, inside. And the reaction of the staff, of the people, and there were different, you know, because actually breathing right is just a confirmation that you're on control, regardless what's happening out there. You're in control, and to this day, I forget every day. You know, when I'm doing introspection, I forget like how's my breathing. You know? And we underestimate it on a daily basis. We just forget, and it's just normal. That's why it's very essential and crucial to introspect on a daily basis. You know, you wake up and whatever you have time to introspect, that's what it means, right? You analyze, self-analysis, and you start with your breathing. Mhm. You're not gonna tell me when you're out of breath, you're enjoying life, right? You're not. Your body is just gasping for air. It's dying. You know? But then when you start breathing back again, you come back to normal, to a spiritual being, right? And it's just simple. When you're dead, you're out of breath. Isn't that cool? Mm. It is. It's factual, right? But yeah. So I forget all the time. Actually, every day I have to remind myself. It's not an easy task, even though I'm doing it for years. Even the people that I met, the gurus from yoga, meditation, they said that it's just like a lifestyle, man. And you're breathing. Even like paramedics, military, they practice their breathing because they have to make decisions. And those decisions are made in a split of a second. And if you're not breathing right, you cannot think right. Your mind is foggy. And it sounds easy, right? But once you start applying it, you will see that it's real. So now everybody has their own way of breathing, right? Through your nose, through the mouth. I kind of did it my own way, you know, and it did help me a lot to make conscious decisions, basically, you know. And the most of all is not to panic. That was my favorite one. Not to panic, because when I panic, I'm not in control, and I don't like that. I don't like that stuff. I don't like that. There's a lot of things that we're not in control, and that's okay. But if I'm not in control of my breathing, I mean, what am I in control of? I don't want that. And this is when we get our authority back in some way, and we exude by default just confidence, and you have to train yourself on a daily basis or whenever you remember, because you will forget. We're too busy doing stuff, and that's okay. But we also have to come back to ourselves and say, how spiritual am I being? You know? If you want to make it sound a little bit divine, right? So now you know, guys. Whenever they told you, you know, you practice religious, I'm just spiritual. Whoa, that's good. You know, What's your God? Well, has no name, but I know that it's alive, right? So I breathe it every time. Mhm. That's basically what it is. You know, it sounds easy, but so difficult, complex to master it. But if you aim for it, there's nothing you can achieve. And I think I thought about that today. You know what? I'm going to talk about this breathing. Because at work sometimes it gets a little bit heavy for a few minutes, and they're always bringing it up, right? I always listen to people how they breathe, and they say, "Man, I'm out of breath." And literally, there was like eight, five, six stairs. I'm like, man, this is so profound. This is people underestimate it. The breathing. I'm like, no, that's an indication about your health. Everything, everything is detected on your breath. You know? Everything. And I think I thought it was pretty cool. You know what? I'm gonna bring it tonight. I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna talk a little bit about it and see what's up. And at the same time, you know, I engage with people and see what's up. But yeah, this might be a short one. Practice your breathing. You know, be spiritual. This is when you're connected to the divine source. Because the proof of life is if your organs are functioning. There's oxygen through your blood stream. You're breathing. It reaches your brain, and then everything functions right where you're breathing. So every time, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. Every time you guys feeling sick, feeling upset, angry, you guys have to make a decision. Check your breathing before anything. Check your breathing, right? And you'll be surprised how many times you say, I was gonna do this, but because I started breathing right, I made this decision better instead of that. Guys, take care.